Good morning, welcome to New Life. Will you stand and worship along with us? We're going to declare He is God. Say He's coming on the clouds. Yeah. He's coming on the clouds. Kings and kingdoms will bow down. And every chain will break as broken hearts declare His praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Whoa. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. We declare His goodness over our lives. Nothing can separate us. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Let's fill this place with worship this morning. Let's say, who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battle, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Amen. Praise Him. So we declare, I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my turn till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my turn till I met you. So we declare, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. See that? And now your freedom is all that I know. He transformed us, set the old made new. Jesus, when I met you, oh, you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. We declare what he has done over our lives. So we say, I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you called my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, yeah, out of the darkness, into your glorious day, yeah. Amen.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, he has ransomed me, his grace was deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, it's free indeed. I'm a child of God,
with me this morning. Dear God, we just thank you because you are always faithful. You are always true. We know that we can embrace the truth and the identity that you have given us because of what you have done upon the cross. Praise you, we love you, and we thank you. And we thank you for this place in which we can worship you. We pray that our hearts be prepared for what it is that you want to show us and teach us this morning. It's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing? Hey, who enjoyed the snowfall this week? Yeah? Okay, good. One of the things I love about Northern Virginia, I grew up here, was that it snows, and it's great, and it looks awesome, but then it melts. And then you're okay, unless it's like freezing cold temperatures and whatnot. But it's really great. Hey, we've got Thanksgiving come up. We've got the holidays come up. There is a lot of great stuff that is coming up here. So if you have not grabbed one of these, definitely grab one on the way out. It's our program. It's a great opportunity for you to learn more about New Life and find out more about what's happening. I'm going to be talking about some of that a little bit later. But this is our Get Connected card and our prayer card. The Get Connected card, this is a great opportunity. If this is one of your first few times here, you've not filled one of these out, fill this out, put it in the offering bag a little bit later. You can find out more information about New Life in the End Zone and how we can best serve you and how we can best work together. But on the other side is a prayer card. Hey, we take prayer very seriously here at New Life, and we pray for every single one of these prayer requests, whether it's an online request or in the offering bag. So if you have a prayer request, whether it's for you or a friend or a family member or coworker, whatever it is, fill this out, put it in the offering bag later, or fill out the live prayer request below the chat box. We would love to be praying for you this week. Hey, we are continuing our series on At the Movies, and we're talking about The Incredibles 2, and Dr. Marcus is here, and we're really excited about that. He was here in the spring, and he's going to be sharing again today, but I want to give a forewarning here. Again, we're talking about The Incredibles 2, but we're talking about a serious matter. We're talking about addictions today, so if you have your child in here and thinking that it's going to be fun and games and Incredibles, because it's fun and games and The Incredibles, we're going to be talking about some serious stuff here as well, so this is a kind of a PG-13 sermon today. So we're excited about him, and he'll be up here right after this.
Such a great clip. Guys, thank you so much for having me this morning. I was here in the spring, and like I shared in the earlier service, that after I left last in the spring, I felt like I got like 300 to 400 new friends on Facebook. So I'm really, really grateful about that. And I do want to encourage you, if you haven't friended me on Facebook, please go ahead. My goal is to be accessible. If you text me or whatever and you have a question and you may not be able to bring that question to me today, please go ahead and do that. If you could find me under hashtag Dr. D, and I'd love to welcome you to my Facebook and build a relationship that way. Today's sermon is entitled Navigating Anxiety and Depression. This is a huge topic in our communities today. Dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression. These types of symptoms actually can paralyze you, both physically and spiritually. So the goal today is really to help you, give you the resources and understanding of what happens and where this comes from. Just a few credentials. I am a medical doctor. I'm board certified with the American Society of Psychiatry and Neurology. I oversee 5 addiction facilities in the United States, and it's one of the areas of my specialty is addiction. We deal with all kinds of addictions: heroin addiction, alcohol, food, pornography, gambling, gaming addiction. For all the dads out there that do a lot of gaming, we're not just talking about teens. And also I run 4 psychiatric practices where we treat people with medications, with therapy, but we also provide something that's more of a paradigm shift in psychiatry. We do something called transcranial magnetic stimulation, and this is a talk about anxiety and depression, and this is why I bring this up. And you may not even know this is out there, but we use MRIs to map your brain. And we find the area of your brain that's responsible for depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder. And we find those areas specifically via the MRI, and we go into the brain and treat right there with the energy of the brain, bringing up the chemicals that are responsible for these illnesses like serotonin, dopamine, and adrenaline, norepinephrine. These are the chemicals that pills actually help you bring up. The problem is that pills can take a long time to work. They give you side effects like weight gain, libido issues, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. And they may not even work depending on your liver enzymes genetically that you have that activate these medications. So with the MRI, we can actually go right into the spot and treat. It's a paradigm shift. If anybody in this in this service is actually struggling with anxiety and depression, I want you to know about this technology that's out there. Next slide. So this is basically TMS here. So I'm also really proud of Untangle Addiction. This is an online website, untangleaddiction.com, that will be released in January, where I will provide resources, videos, podcasts, webinars, everything. All the sermons that I do around the country and talks that I do around the country, they will all be on there completely free for the community to educate and have understanding in addiction, but also mental health issues. You can easily sign up by going to 66866 on your cell phone and type in Untangle, and in January you will start getting information. I'm also really proud of my first book that was published by discipleship.org called Untangling Addiction, a guide to recovery through Jesus-style discipleship. You can download it completely free at renew.org, discipleship.org, or healthymindmd.com. Healthymindmd.com is my professional website of what I do for a living. There's tons of videos there, all kinds of resources, but the book is there as well, and all you got to do is sign up and you get it completely free. It's an ebook that you can read. All of the information that I'm going to be giving you here today is in that book. And so if you miss something, it's all laid out there for you. That book was designed for church leaders, ministry staff, people that just come to church, or loved ones that you may have that may be struggling. The purpose of this talk today is to bring education and awareness, to bring understanding of what is anxiety and depression, what it is in the brain, what has happened, how it all started, and also the hope to overcome. Can I see a show of hands in here in this room of people that may struggle with anxiety or depression? Okay. Can I see a show of hands in here? Guys, don't be bashful. This is for you. Can I see a show of hands in this room of people that you may know, a loved one that struggles with anxiety and depression? Okay. The information we're going to give you today is going to help those individuals, but also may help you. So where did anxiety begin? Often people ask me, Dr. D, why do I have these issues? I didn't struggle with this as a child, but now all of a sudden I have this. Why is this coming out of nowhere? Why is my son struggling with all this anxiety on a day-to-day? Why is my daughter having all this trouble now? I don't understand it. When I was young, I never struggled with this. We just pushed through. Why aren't they tough like me? Before I can even answer those questions, we've got to answer the question, where does anxiety, where did depression begin? Does it begin with the mom who's struggling, a single mom who's struggling with her children? She has a job. She's trying to navigate through all these things. She's trying to provide the finances. Yes, she did have a difficult childhood. There was abuse in her life. And now, as an adult, she's trying to navigate through all these things. And the only thing that helps her suppress all these negative feelings and all this anxiety and all this fear is when she gets home at night and she can have that glass of wine that becomes 2, 3 glasses. Does anxiety or depression begin with the teen? We found out that in the United States, from ages from 10 to 25, the number 2 killer from ages of 10 to 25 years of age is suicide. Think about that, guys. A 10-year-old planning his death, planning the end of his life. Something is happening in our communities, in our societies today, that a young individual like that would end their own life. Our superhero that you guys were, the homework was that you guys were going to watch the movie before coming here. I hope you did. But our superhero here, who is now faced with the fact that he can't live out his dream. His wife is out there saving the day, and now he's at home with the kids. And I get it. I know the anxieties of raising kids. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old, and they're all boys. And so I get it. I know how stressful this is. I know what it means to not sleep at night. I know what it means to be fearful. fearful of things that can hurt them, fearful of what's to come for them. I understand that, and it's real. Yeah, this is a movie, but this is a reality. And one of the beauties of this is the way they depicted it is that anybody, an adult, anybody can watch this and relate to what he's going through. The nights of no sleep, the anxiety, the thoughts, everything. And the fact that his wife is out there doing it and he's at home and he can't. And that anxiety and that lack of sleep can turn into rage and anger, a form of coping, a go-to for people because this is what they've seen in their childhood and their development. And they turn to that in order to deal. And the collateral damage in their families is catastrophic. In our high schools today, 50% of teens will never be spoken to about mental illness. They will never be spoken to about depression or anxiety or addiction. And a third of those students will go on to college and struggle with depression, and a quarter will actually contemplate suicide. We're seeing in our college campuses today a 227% increase in daily marijuana and substance abuse today. These young individuals who do not have the skills to navigate through the dorm rooms, to navigate through all the other personalities that are coming into their lives and deal with the stresses of it. And in order to dampen those feelings, they turn to drugs or alcohol, which suppress areas of the brain that are responsible for you to be emotionally aware of what you're feeling, even if it's difficult, so they're suppressed. And this is how they're learning to navigate through life, through marijuana, through alcohol, through pain pills like opioids, prescription pills that are killing people every day. 80,000 people have died last year alone. No medical illness, no car accident, nothing kills more people in the United States than opioid overdoses. Does it begin with the young teen who goes to his dentist to get his wisdom teeth taken out and understand that dentists are the number one providers of these pain pills? And this is a young teen who has some anxiety, and he goes there, he gets his wisdom teeth taken out, and teens are Googling online. You can do this as on your own, adults here. You can Google online that teens are talking about going to the dentist because they know they will get a prescription of Percocet or Lortab for that wisdom teeth pain. He goes to his dentist, he gets these pain pills, he goes home with them and he takes them, and for the first time, he takes a pill and he feels normal. Why? Because that pain pill produces a massive amount of dopamine, a chemical that's responsible for feeling good and dampening pain. Dopamine makes you feel good, and it dampens the areas of your brain that are responsible for you to be emotionally aware of anxiety, of stress, of the fear of walking out in the halls, of the fears of navigating through social media. And what did they post about me? Why am I not in that group? Why don't they like me? Why does my body look like that? And he takes these pills and he learns that now he can just feel normal and life is good to him. But this teen is smart. He is a high-functioning individual. He navigates through high school. He gets into an Ivy League college, even while doing these things and hiding it from his family, living a double life, which he has learned from his peers and his friends who are all doing it with him. A group of friends that are actually all going away to college and are good kids. And on graduation night, when he's celebrating getting into an Ivy League school, one of his friends give him a Percocet, which is an opioid, because they've been doing it, but his friend bought him off this dealer on the street. The pill looks like a real pill. It looks like a doctor prescribed it. And if it's by a doctor, hey, it's okay. But some drug dealer compressed some fentanyl, which is another chemical, on that pill, which is 100 times more powerful than morphine, 100 times more powerful than that pill. And he takes it, and his mom finds him dead the next morning, and his life is gone. A reality in our societies today. It sounds like a horrible story, but guys, I've worked with a lot of people. This is their story. Alcohol. The individual, and I mentioned the mom, who comes home and she can't wait to get home at 5 o'clock because she knows she can have that glass of wine. And she knows that all of her worries about her job and her life, if she goes home, she has that glass, she can just decompress. And then one glass becomes 2 glasses and 3 glasses and a bottle. And then one night she goes out to buy another bottle because she runs out and she gets stopped by some police and gets a DUI. And then one DUI turns into 2 DUIs and now she's facing incarceration because of multiple DUIs. And the 9-year-old child, naive, online, You know, he has an iPad for school. Mom and dad may let him go on social media. And accidentally, he comes across pornography. 9 years of age is the average age a young child comes across pornography in the United States. Accidentally. Parents often ask me, how do I prevent this from happening? How can I prevent my child from looking at this stuff online? It's not preventable, guys. You can do whatever you want. Accidentally, he is going to face it, or she is going to face it. And this young teen now, as he's navigating through life, and maybe he has some anxiety, and maybe he has some depression, and as he goes through, he's continuing to look at porn. And what does porn do? It produces massive amounts of dopamine, just like that Percocet tablet, just like alcohol does, and it suppresses the areas of the brain responsible for you to be emotionally aware. So you don't have to feel anxiety. You don't have to be depressed. And this young teen, he's going through this, and his family is a spiritual family, and they go to church, and he's hiding these things, and he knows all the right things to say at church, but he has this double life. And his hope is that, gosh, I can't wait till I get married, and I have my wife, and I don't have to turn to this pornography anymore, and I can break free from this stuff. But he's never really dealt with the underlying issues in his life, because it's not just about the porn. There are other deeper things that he needs to deal with. And he gets married, and there it comes again, that addiction to pornography, all those illusions, all those images that his wife will never be able to compare to. And his marriage fails miserably. And there he is again, alone. Something I've seen in churches around the United States, and something that I'm called on to counsel for. Cutting. Why do teens do this? Why do they do this to their bodies? To see this in real life in an emergency room, it's horrific. What happens with teens is that they do not have the ability to deal with ambiguity, meaning they cannot deal with the unknown. It is very hard for them to deal with conflict and be able to say in their minds, everything is going to be okay. I'll be able to talk to that person. We'll figure out a way to do this. It's very hard for them to do that because their frontal lobe of their brain that's responsible for rational thinking, for right or wrong, is not fully developed until 23. So they're very impulsive in nature. And so since they can't deal with the unknown of what's to come, whether somebody posted something about them on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is, or whatever you let your kids look at, they can't deal with that. And so they need certainty. They need to know everything is going to be okay. So they choose certainty. And usually when they choose certainty, it's everything is going to be bad. And they need relief from that feeling of badness. And what do? They cut. Why? Because they've learned online that by cutting, it releases massive amounts of dopamine. Just like heroin, opioids, alcohol, everything I've talked about. And that dopamine is released, and it suppresses that ability to feel and be emotionally aware, and they don't have to feel and worry, and allows them to be present in the moment. The problem with cutting is that it causes something called parasuicide. These kids don't want to kill themselves, but yet they may go in too deep, or they may have cut in so many places they've hit, and they go to one spot and they hit an artery, and they die. So we look at these dopamine levels, and I've shared this last time I was here, morphine, cocaine, all producing massive amounts of dopamine, okay? And when dopamine is released, it has one thing in common. It makes you feel good. It suppresses areas in your brain that are allowing you to be emotionally aware, but it does one other thing. It lays down new neural networks in the brain, new neurons in the brain that become intertwined with the same neurons that are responsible for your survival, responsible for things like food, sleep, okay? Those same urges. Don't eat for 5 days. You're going to be dreaming about food, okay? Now imagine everything that you've become addicted to that now you're using for relief, to deal with the anxiety and depression, is intertwined in there. So when you're facing with stressful situations, you are going to turn to those coping mechanisms. When we look at pornography, we see that dopamine, look at all the other lines behind it. Dopamine goes up and it drops pretty quick. But with porn, it stays in your system, dopamine, for 5 hours. Honey, I'm going to the mall. I'll be back in 5 hours. No problem, honey, I'm here. Dad gets on the computer. He wants to do some work. He doesn't want to look at porn. He's trying to overcome that. And then a little pop-up comes up. And that pop-up is something that is kind of risque, something that is kind of leading him to more pornography. And he sees that. And before he can even turn it off, his brain's already releasing dopamine based on that memory. And then he clicks on that and clicks on that, and before he knows it, he's deep in porn. And then his wife comes back, not 5 hours, but an hour later. And that dopamine is still out there for 5 hours based on that porn. And what does he got to do? He's got to lie. He's got to jump from reality to fantasy and manipulate the moment and make it look like everything is okay. And then neuroplastic changes are made in his brain that are responsible for those lies, responsible how to manipulate, responsible how to navigate through getting caught. And then this is what he learns under stress, not just by hiding for the porn, but in his job, in his career, in his sales, in his education. And that's why we say when somebody struggles with addiction, how do we know they're lying? The moment they move their lips, because this is the go-to. This is what happens to their brain. Next slide. So this is the neurological changes, neuroplasticity from left to right. As we continue to do repetitive behaviors that are addictive in nature, that release dopamine, that may be because you want relief from anxiety or depression, not because you want to get high. Go from left to right and create a neural network and a web. And in that neural network is all the lies, all the images, all the hiding. How am I going to be able to get invited to my neighbor's barbecue party because I want to go into their bathroom and look into their medicine cabinet to see if they've got any Percocet, Valium, or anything in there that I can steal? Very common. All of that is intertwined in there. So then under stress, under anxiety, under depression, that becomes their go-to. Their brain will demand it. Why? Because the brain knows more dopamine. Basic things like food and sleep produce certain amounts of dopamine, but things like this produce massive amounts of dopamine, and I showed you the graphs. The brain knows more dopamine. So anxiety and depression, the most common mental illness in the United States. 40 million Americans struggle with this, 20% of our population. That's people being treated. But what about the people that aren't getting treatment? What about the people that are self-medicating? What about all those individuals who are stuck, that their brain is now hijacked to believe it needs all these other mechanisms of relief to survive, like food and sleep? When we look at individuals and we want to see, okay, who's somebody that has the potential to develop anxiety, depression, or addiction, we look at the biopsychosocial model. What does that say? We look at the biology of the individual, their genetics. Are they genetically predisposed to develop anxiety and depression? Did their family members have anxiety and depression? Did somebody have bipolar disorder? Did somebody have schizophrenia? And for some reason now, they can't produce the serotonin, the chemical that is needed, that when a negative thought comes into play, serotonin at the right levels can actually make you look at these things and be like, it's okay. Do they make enough norepinephrine, another chemical responsible for mood? Do they make enough dopamine? Do they actually make that chemical dopamine? Because genetically, if you make less dopamine, over time, you at a higher rate of taking risks and getting tablets to produce the dopamine that you don't even make. From a developmental standpoint, psychology, what was your development like? What was the mirroring in the home? Was the mirroring appropriate, meaning you're a small infant and you're laughing. Something funny happens and you start to laugh. And mom sees that smile and instinctively she smiles back at you. And that smile, the child looks at it and laughs, and in his brain, he's like, this is what it is to smile, this is what it is to feel good, and all of that is internalized. And when that happens in mirroring with the child, areas of the brain start to develop that allow us to be emotionally aware, that allow us to be like, this is what smiling is like. When that child and the child is crying or sad and he's like, oh my gosh, I hurt myself. And mom looks down and, are you okay? He's internalizing, this is what it feels like to feel hurt or pain, and the facial gestures and everything associated. And we study this in functional MRIs where we give people images and we light up areas of their brain to see what areas are active or inactive. That's proper mirroring. But from a developmental standpoint, was your home like this? You're a child and you're smiling at dad and you're expecting a smile back. But dad is an alcoholic. He's drunk. He's walking around the house and he sees you smiling. And the first thing he says is, "What are you smiling at? Wipe that smile off your face." The child is so confused. His brain is confused and he'll even have a reaction where he's paralyzed. He doesn't even know what to do. And he internalizes that. It suppresses the areas of the brain that allow you to be emotionally aware, and they don't grow and they don't develop. The thing is that as children, we have been designed to idealize our caregivers. Mom and dad are superheroes. We look at them like they are incredible. They can do no wrong. They can beat everybody up. They're the strongest. They're the best. So when mom or dad does something bad to us, we cannot direct anger at them. But there is a sense of badness when these things happen. So where does that anger go? It's internalized into the child. And over time, that small child develops a sense of self-loathing. I'm no good. I'm disgusting. I'm gross. I'm fat. I'll never be able to achieve anything. Their identity, their self-esteem is here. And as they develop and they grow through life in their teens and they're navigating through life, they may come across Percocets, opioids. They may come across nicotine. They may come across porn and all that badness. And they just want to be normal. And finally, they found something that allows them to feel normal. And they start to use it. And over time, it develops those areas of the brain neuroplastically changing. And their brain is like, this is what you need to deal with all this. And when they go to bed at night and they're looking past it, all the sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional abuse, anything bad that happened in their lives, and their brains are spinning, they're going to go to that. Why? They got to get to bed. They need relief. Why do they go into the refrigerator and binge on food to shut it down? Or go online and do some gambling or gaming or watch pornography while everybody else is sleeping? Because they just want relief. And this is the cycle, and this is how it goes from a developmental standpoint. If you go back to that last slide. From a social perspective, guys, what is your life like today? Where are your finances? What's your marriage like? What's your relationship with your children like? Are you inserted in their lives? What are the things that are keeping you up tonight, tomorrow, yesterday, today? Your worries about work, your worries about an unknown future. So we look at all three areas when we talk about anxiety and depression and addiction: the genetics, the development, and your life today. Your life today. Where are you spiritually? Are you here on Sunday and at your small group, and then you have a completely other group of friends that you hang out with that anything goes? Where are you spiritually, and what are your relationships like? Are they transparent? Are they vulnerable? Do people really know what you're struggling with? So anxiety, when we define anxiety, how do we define anxiety? We define anxiety by excessive worry on a daily basis, irritability, insomnia, difficulty to concentrate, muscle fatigue. You don't even have to say, I'm anxious, to be anxious. Sometimes people don't even know that they're anxious. They go to physicians, they get all kinds of studies done. You can be at dinner with your wife, and in the middle of having a great time together, you're like, I'm having a heart attack. Rush to the emergency room, cardiac enzymes, troponin levels, echo, stress tests, the whole thing. And you're completely normal, thank God. But yet it's all about anxiety. Anxiety, you could be at the dinner table with your family and your kids are like, Dad, where are you, Dad? And you're just standing there. And you can't even comprehend, you can't even insert yourself into their lives. Anxiety in a teen, the fears of navigating school, the fears of social media, everything, and they're stuck and they're glued. Yesterday I spent the afternoon here in Virginia, and I was at a Starbucks, and I was working on things for today's presentation and last night's presentation, and I saw this group of teens there, and I just observed them, and there were 4 of them, and they were sitting at a table for 45 minutes. They said a few words when they sat down, they opened up the phones, and then somebody said, let's go. And then they left. They didn't even communicate. And they were there together. And it sounds almost funny, but I was just like, wow. I mean, this is really where we are. Depression, guilt, worthlessness, hopelessness, poor appetite, poor sleep, poor energy, poor concentration. It can lead to thoughts of, I wish I could just go to bed and not wake up. And that can lead to, if I'm dead, maybe everything would be better for us. And that can lead to planning your death. And that can lead to suicide. In a place where it's almost like a trapdoor where you can't even get out. A break from reality. That's what depression can cause when it's not treated properly. So how do we help these individuals? How do we help people overcome? What do we do for them? In order to do that, we have to understand that we have come from a place in time where we didn't have the infrastructure that we have today. We were designed to be able to perceive threats and the possibility of death. And if you did not have this ability with some basic structures in your brain to be able to see, is there lightning coming? Because if you can't see lightning, then you'll die. We didn't have lightning rods out there. We didn't have things like that today, or alarms that go off. So you had to have the ability to do that. We were don't get killed machines at one point. But we've inherited this into our modern day society. Is my boss coming from down the aisle there? Yesterday we were in the boardroom meeting and he made me look like a fool. And I didn't sleep at all last night. And constantly worried and fearful of perceived threats coming from every angle. We see our taxes come in the mail. How are we going to pay for this? How financially am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for my child's school? How am I going to make ends meet? I just lost my job. How am I going to do this? How am I going to pay for health insurance? And for young teens and even adults, constantly looking on social media, comparing ourselves. Look at that family. They've got everything. Look at that husband. He makes a good living. Why can't my husband do that? Look at that wife. Wow, she's pretty. Why can't my wife be that way? Look at these teens. Look at them, how they look. Look at how thin she is. Why can't I be that thin? Constantly comparing ourselves to these different things. And our minds look at these things as possible threats. And it initiates a cascade in our brain that causes more depression and anxiety. So we come from a place where big animals with even bigger teeth lurked in every corner. Is there a bear behind those trees? Is there a wolf behind those bushes? Who is that in the distance? Are they coming to kill us? Are they coming to take everything we have? Or are they coming to join us and be together with us? So we're constantly filtering through threat at all times. The thing about it is that our brain has certain structures that are responsible for this, designed by God that allowed us to survive. We have several senses in our brain. We have the ability to see, we have the ability to smell, we have the ability to touch, we have the ability to hear. And all of those senses go to one area of the brain. Right above that little purple little peanut area right up there is something called the thalamus. And the thalamus's job is to be able to say, is this information that's coming via my sight or my hand, my touch or my smell, is this a threat? It has to make a decision in 0.03 of a second. Is this a possible threat that I can die? And when it says, nope, it's not a threat, it directs information to the front of the brain, which is called the frontal lobe, which is responsible for rational thinking, right and wrong. The decision to come to church this morning was not an impulsive decision. It was a rational decision. I want to learn more about this. I want to be closer to Jesus. I want to be a Christian. That's not impulsive. That is rational, logical thinking. And we call it executive function, and it lies in the front of the brain. But here's the thing. That thalamus, if it actually is like, whoa, this is a threat, it starts to fire that little purple area there called the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible. And this is the core of the talk, guys. The amygdala is responsible for something called fight or flight. What does that mean? If the amygdala believes that this is a possible threat, your lungs start to hyperventilate. Your eyes dilate. Adrenaline starts to get secreted and saturates your muscles. So you can move quickly, you can run, you can fight, you can do whatever you've got to do. Cortisol is released. Blood pressure goes up. Heart rate goes up. Everything based on survival. Okay, guys, we've heard the stories. Mom is in a car accident. Child is trapped in their baby seat in the back. Mom gets out and tries to get the baby out, and the door is stuck. And out of nowhere, she says she saw red and rips the door off the car. Superhuman strength. How is that possible? All that adrenaline saturating her muscles, reacting, survival, threat, bam, and saves the child. We've heard the story. Gentleman's driving in his car. He gets bumped in the back. He turns back and somebody's like, ah! And he looks back and he's like, all I saw was red. He got out of the car and kills the other individual. Why? Survival. The brain takes over. When the amygdala takes over and makes that decision to react, it bypasses the frontal lobe and hijacks it for a quarter of a second. So you can't rationally think. You can't have one or the other. One is just going to completely take over. And the amygdala is responsible for survival. The same neurochemistry that I talked to you about, food, sleep, the same neurons that get developed with opioids, pornography, addiction, all get intertwined. Where are they intertwined? They're wrapped around that amygdala. So that's why impulsively people will use drugs or alcohol or porn when they feel a perceived threat. They feel anxiety, they feel depression, and that's why they go to that. It's like they see red, and they can't rationally think, I don't want to do this anymore. This is destroying my marriage. I've been doing so good right now, I don't want to do this anymore. And for that split second, dopamine starts to get released and fires onto that amygdala, and the amygdala is like, this is a threat, we got to survive. But here's the question. How does the amygdala make the decision with the thalamus that this is a threat? How does the amygdala know? It just can see everything and know? No, it does not. Behind the amygdala is a little structure called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is responsible for all your memories, all the good memories, anything that you can recall right now. If you can remember first grade, second grade, an image of your childhood, something good, something nice, and you could see it, that's in your hippocampus. In fact, in patients that have dementia that I treat, if people that are losing their memory, and they could be so far gone in their memory, if you ask them, where were you born and what year, they're going to know like that, because that is the last memories they're going to lose. They can't forge new memories, but those are stored so deep in their hippocampus, it's that hard drive. But not only are all the good memories in the hippocampus, all the bad memories. What are you looking at? All the trauma, all the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, everything that you've gone through as a child, how you saw mom and dad deal with conflict, how you saw people deal with conflict. Everything is in that hippocampus. So, when the amygdala has to make a decision, is this a threat? It calls onto the hippocampus and says, is this a threat based on my past? Should I react? Should I fire my blood pressure, my heart rate, adrenaline? Should I do all that based on my past? And the amygdala has to make a decision. And it may make the right decision, or it may make the wrong decision. We've heard the stories. Mom or somebody is walking across the street, and a bus is coming. She doesn't even see it, but boom, she gets pulled back. And she looks back to see if somebody pulled her. Nobody's there. And the reporters are like, how did you jump out of the way? I don't know. It was like somebody pulled me. But it saved her life. The amygdala perceived that threat. Thank God. But what about the individual? Maybe one of you here. It's a Saturday night. You go on Facebook. You're at home. Nothing, you weren't invited to do anything. And you start seeing photos of a party from somebody at church. Your friends. People that know you. And you're like, I wasn't invited? These are my friends. Why didn't they invite me to this? And you see another friend there, and everybody's having a great time, but you were left out. And based on your past, your hippocampus, your development, maybe there's abandonment there. Maybe you've gone through something like that. And the amygdala is like, this is a threat. And it fires. And it starts to get that cascade going. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and you start to get sad and depressed and anxious. And you start firing off texts to people. And you're, how could you have not invited me? How could you have not done? And you're feeling horrible and sad. But then you find out that this get-together was maybe something with some leadership or something that had nothing to do with you, that nobody was trying to hurt you or exclude you, and you're like now rationally thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? And this is how the amygdala provokes depression and anxiety. It perceives threats based on your development, also based on your genetics. Next slide. So let's see here a clip from the movie that you guys were supposed to watch of how we start to spiral out of control. So we see here, he's struggling to get to sleep. That is actually going to cause more days of him not getting rest. He's on the phone with his wife, and they both have this common goal. They want to save people. They want to be superheroes. But since she has to go out before him, and now she's doing it, and he's at home not really doing what he wants to do, he starts to spiral. He can't even see clearly of what she's saying. He's fighting to do it, but he's getting all this anger, all this anxiety. And that's how quickly we spiral. It's so subtle. You can be in a conversation with somebody. Maybe you see a friend or somebody you know struggling with something, struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression, and you try to get in their lives, and they're like, bam, right? And they just start getting angry and they start getting mad, and you're there to just try to help them. And you see it. You see them decompensate right in front of your eyes, and they can't see clearly. It's so subtle how this stuff comes. It has nothing to do with you, but it may have something to do with their past. When one of the things that I would deal with is anger. And how I used to spiral out of control. And I'm going to show you something that further in the sermon of how you can overcome this. But what I would do is I would drive up to the house many years ago, and I would see my wife in there, and I would see the kids kind of all over the place, running around, a lot like in this movie. And I'd see my wife on the phone, and I've been up since like 5 a.m. working, and I am exhausted. And I come home, and the first thing I feel as I'm in that car looking through the window is anger. And anger and even disrespect. And I would think to myself, like, gosh, she doesn't respect me. She doesn't care for me, and she doesn't love me. And it sounds crazy, but those are underlying issues from my past that have nothing to do with my wife. Of course she loves me. Of course she cares for me. Of course she respects me. But the view and the lens that I'm looking through based on an underlying ideology of things that happen in my life actually activate an area that is looking back at my life via the hippocampus and the amygdala and firing that response. And I'll walk in that house and we'll have a full-blown fight in front of my kids. And that's not who I want to be. And that's how it would work in my life. And through my psychiatric training and really getting help and overcoming these things, I was able to change. And this is what we're going to go through. It was important for us to recall our memories in the past. It was important for us to remember, how did I defeat that wolf? It was coming to kill my children. How did I take him down by his paw and kill him? How did I survive? It was important for us to reflect on our past in those days, because it provided survival in the future. But in our modern society, we constantly reflect on our past. We're laying there in bed, and we constantly ruminate on our past, and the past hurts. Even if the past hurts were things that we overcame, things that we learned lessons from. We constantly think about them, and we sit there, and our brains are tired and unrested, and we wrestle. Just like he was in bed, and he was like, I know how to do math. Because one of his children was like, I'll just wait for mom to do the math, Dad. You don't know the new math. And so he was upset about it, and he's ruminating, and he's thinking about these silly things. So it was important back in the day, it was important for us to constantly compare ourselves to people, constantly compare ourselves to our villagers, the people that we lived with, the people that were in our society, constantly asking the questions, am I providing? Am I bringing food? Am I doing things in order to support this group? Because if I don't do these things, the group is going to kick me out. And if they kick me out and they leave, I'll be left alone. And if I'm left alone, I will die. So it was important to constantly compare ourselves to them. We needed to do that. The problem is in our modern society, we continue to compare ourselves to people. But our societies today are not just left to 20 villagers that we're living with. It's made up of millions of people that now we communicate through these devices, and we're constantly scrolling, and we're constantly looking at images, and we're looking and comparing ourselves to each other, people that we may not even know, images that are not even real, selfies and things like that, illusions, and we look at them and we're like, she's thin, and look at her body, and look at how much wealth they have, and look at this, why can't I be on that vacation? And we constantly do that, and it leaves us feeling empty, wanting more, and we will never be able to fill that, and it's fantasy, it's not reality. It was important in the past for us to constantly have food, to bring weapons, to have houses. Why? Because when we did these things, it allowed us to have more babies. And so we can continue to survive and grow. But in our modern society, we continue to get more things, and nothing is ever good enough, and we want more and more. And what does that leave us? With greed, with a feeling that nothing is ever going to fill me. And in the hustle and bustle of our modern day, of the checklist of things that we've got to keep on doing, and I get it, guys. I wake up early. I round at the hospitals. I go to the clinics. I see patients. I travel the country. I go home. I see my 4 kids and my wife, and I've got to be to the sporting events and do all those things too. It's hard, just like every one of you in here has got to do. And all of that brings anxiety and fear of what's to come. Am I doing enough as a parent? Am I giving them enough? Am I providing enough? What if somebody gets sick? What if somebody needs to be rushed to the emergency room with 105 temperature? All those things. That's real life. And it's hard. How do we navigate through that? How do I, as a dad, instead of having to step in the possibility of my son dying, which is something I went through in my life, and rushing him to the hospital and not knowing if he's going to die? Do I turn to a glass of wine? Do I turn to things that I've learned? Or do I step into that fear and I do it? How do we do that? We have to look at the life of Jesus. In Matthew 26:36, in a moment in time, Jesus, our God, the creator of this world, the reason we are all here today, stated, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." Quote, unquote. He's not being dramatic. If you have an NIV Bible in red, that's in red. Those are his words. The creator of this planet, this universe, everything we know, was so overwhelmed with fear, so overwhelmed. What did he do? "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." He wanted relief. It was too much for him. Have you ever been there? Where you're just so overwhelmed that you just want just to shut it down. So is Jesus. The only time in the scriptures do we see this. Our God, a God that we can connect with, a God that was a man, a God that had to feel everything that we felt. He went through it too. He sat, he toiled, he prayed. He was fearful of what's to come, the flogging, being spat on, being beaten, being crucified, being separated from his Father for our sin, for my sin. All those things, nothing good was coming to Jesus that day. He was fused to his feelings, negative emotions, fused as if they were a part of his body. Fused where you can't even see the dividing line, as if 2 pieces of metal brought together, where when they're melted and brought together, you can't even see that line. It looks like one piece of metal. Imagine that fusion to your body. And that feeling, that emotion dictates your next decision. And your next decision, and you spiral, and that amygdala is firing, and that hippocampus is firing. And you keep going deeper and deeper, and you're begging for relief. The degree of fusion dictates the degree of suffering. The more you find relief, the more you try to avoid feeling, the more you try to control your feelings and not step into them, that amygdala gets hard. And when I say hard, it becomes an automatic go-to, and it starts to fire and fire. And rational thought is the furthest thing that your brain is going to do. It's just going to react. You've ever met anybody that, like, every time you try to talk to them, it's like, boom, a bomb. Like, it's like, gosh, I wish I could just sit with this person and talk with them, and they're calm and cool, but bam, they react. It's not about you. There are deep things going on, deep waters there. The purpose of a man, hard or deep waters, but it's a man of understanding that draws them out. So it's difficult to turn from false beliefs. This is a photograph given to me by a patient. It's not of her. She found this on the internet, and she wanted to give it to me, and she's like, "Dr. D, I just want you to know what it feels like. I look in the mirror, and this is really kind of what I see. Imagine my life. My mom constantly told me, you're fat, you're disgusting, you're never going to be like your sister. When this girl came home from college, all she wanted to do was just be home with her family for the holidays, freshman year. And her mom, the first thing she said when she walked in, she's like, gosh, you put on the freshman 15. You're so fat. How is that woman going to develop into somebody who has self-esteem about her body? How is she going to respect her body? How is she going to go and move forward? She's going to find people that are just going to accept her for whatever, somebody that may exploit her and use her. And that's where her suffering is. Eating disorders, alcoholism. So we teach these individuals something called acceptance and commitment therapy. What is acceptance and commitment therapy? We teach people that the majority of life is suffering. Life is hard. The longer you live, the more you're going to see how life is difficult. We used to teach, and people believe this, that as you get older, you're more resilient. You have thicker skin, but that's not the truth. The truth is that as you get older, you may have a child who dies. You may lose your job, a career, and you may have children, people that depend on you, and all that stress is on you. And you're like, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? You may develop a terminal illness. Your loved one may develop a terminal illness, and it's hard. And based on your genetics, based on your development, do you have the skills to navigate through it? Or are you just going to get fused to all that suffering and let it just hit you down and then find relief? Or are you going to step into your life and learn how to navigate through it? What are you going to do? So we teach these individuals that they have to accept their past. They have to accept that it was so horrible and sad that your parents, your caregivers, the people involved in your life were not good to you. And they did horrible things to you. And it's not as easy as just telling them that. But it takes time to work through that with them. We teach them they've got to accept an unknown future. When we are at bed at night and we're thinking of the scenarios and how everything is going to play out and we can't get rest, we've got to accept the fact that this is unknown. We don't know how this is going to play out, and it usually never plays out how you think it's going to play out. Why? Because when you're in bed at night, you're tired. Your frontal lobe is completely bypassed, and your amygdala is firing and working as you're trying to sleep. And it takes over, and it's going to invoke fear, because that's what it's designed to do. And we allow ourselves to feel and step into difficult emotions and feelings. I'm not trying to teach you guys anything that's going to make you feel awesome, guys. I'm trying to teach you that the majority of life is hard, and we've got to learn how to navigate through it. We have an opioid epidemic where 80,000 people have died, and they're turning to these things and finding relief, and they accidentally die. We need, as a society and as a community, to teach people how to navigate through the realities of life. So how do we do this? We do this by committing to our values. What are our values, and where do our values lie? They lie in the frontal lobe. They lie in rational thinking. They don't lie in the amygdala. They're not impulsive. Values are, what do you stand for? What really matters to you? How do you want to be remembered by your wife, your children, your friends, your relationships? We set our mind on things above. What are your values? Why are you here this morning? It's not impulsive. These are values. These are decisions. So values are truths. They guide you in real time. They motivate you in real time. They inspire behavioral change in real time. They are truths, not emotions. Let's go back to the car. I drive up to the front of my house. I look in my house and I see my wife there. Real time, today, now. And I look in there and I see the kids all over the place and couches are a mess and my wife is in there and I feel that anger again. And it's coming from a deep place that I've identified. And the first thing I do is this. Father, I notice I'm having a feeling of anger. I notice I'm having that feeling of being disrespected and not being loved. Father, I can feel that feeling in my chest. It's circular. It's round. It's black. I can pull it up and look at it, and it almost looks like an iceberg. I can even spin it. Father, but I know my values say that I want to walk into my home and I don't want to keep records of wrong. I don't want to be easily angered. I want for my kids to see me kiss my wife and get on the floor with them and start cleaning and directing them and helping them. I want my wife to see that. I want my kids to see that. Father, I love you. Thank you. And I go into my house. And what has happened there is feeling and emotion and me wanting relief and to go in there and be angry. But from that moment, diffusion to my values, to what is true, not feeling and emotion. Feelings and emotions are feelings and emotions. They are not truths. Truths are what God has taught me through the scriptures. And that's how you do it in real time. Where do we find our values? We find them in the scriptures, guys. They're all over there. This is me and my son Rafa. He's 8 now, but he was 1 there. And what are we doing there? This is what we do every single morning in my house. I have 4 boys now. I only had 1 then. But they know Daddy's relationship with Jesus, and they know about the life of David. They know everything about David. They know that Daddy relates with him because he was a sinful man, but he didn't sin more than the same sins twice. They know about Goliath. They know all the stories of David. They know those values in there. They know Daddy's values. Why? Because they want to be like Daddy. And Daddy wants to be like Jesus. And so now they're going to have a set of values that through conflict and through time, they're going to learn through our relationship, through discipleship. That's what we're building in our home, and that's what I give to them, and that's what I go to for my values. They know them already. Do the values you have, are they in your relationships? Is the DNA of your relationships based on spiritual values? Do people that know you know what you stand for, who you want to be, how you behave at home, where your weaknesses are, what you need help with? Do you have relationships like that in church? Everybody knew who Jesus' disciples were by the way they loved each other. Those are the relationships I'm talking about. Vulnerability, transparency, the ability to confront one another with love. Do you have those relationships? Are your values based on that? So what is mindfulness? When I did this technique where I went from here to here, feeling and emotion to values, that's mindfulness. It's an awareness process. People look at mindfulness and they say, whoa, is this guy a Buddhist? Is he teaching me Buddhism? No. Mindfulness has been used in many different philosophies and religions. It is an awareness process. It's a process that allows you to be present in real time, in the moment. That in real time you can make room and be aware of what you're feeling, even if it's difficult. I'm feeling sorrow to the point of death. So what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish this. We're trying to encourage you to step into your life even when facing sorrow and suffering while focusing on values which come from a deep relationship with Jesus. Guys, you can't separate the fact that you're going to leave here and have to navigate through difficulty. You're not going to take difficulty and make it feel good. You've got to step into the bad feeling, but use values to navigate through it with preventing fusion. So remember Jesus, guys, as we close out. Fusion. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He was completely fused to that. Avoidance or control or relief. My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Acceptance and mindfulness. My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done. And a commitment to his values. When Judas came, Jesus knew what was to come. He still knew he was going to face all those things. He wasn't feeling really good. And when they came to him, he didn't say to his disciples, grab your swords, let's run, let's fight them. He says, rise, let us go, let's step into our lives. Here comes my betrayer. Jesus was able to do that, even though he knew what was to come. To close out here, I'm going to give you a picture of my 2 older boys. So that's Rafa on the left, and that's Paulo on the right. And before coming here, I asked them, I wanted to take a picture of them doing something called mindfulness. And so we go out in the backyard, and my other son, he's in 1st grade, and he's in pre-K. And they immediately get into these positions where they're kind of praying. And I was like, we pray together as a family, but I've never told them to do mindfulness. And so my wife is out there, and she starts laughing, and I'm like, why are you laughing? And she says, well, they're doing mindfulness with them at school. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. Guys, it's not just about the teen who died that night on his graduation night. And it's not just about the woman who's facing incarceration for multiple DUIs, or the person who's older now, who's trying to navigate through her depression. But it's about our children. Eventually, what's going to happen to Rafa, he's 8 now, when he turns 9 or 10, he's going to be online doing something with his work. And I'm not going to know everything that's going on in his life. I can't be that type of dad that's involved in everything. I don't know what fears he's going to face. I don't know what peer pressure is going on and things that he may not even teach me or tell me. We're not that perfect. But what I want to happen, and I hope, is that in that moment of time where he's feeling the pressure and the fear and anxiety of stuff in his life, and he's feeling like he wants relief, and he's thinking about taking a pill or looking at porn or doing these things, instead of choosing relief, he's going to choose Jesus. Thank you.
We are going to move into a time of communion right now, and this is a great opportunity to reflect on what Christ has done for us. If you've accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, take the bread, take the juice. Remember the sacrifice Christ made for you so many years ago. If you've not accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, I would love for you to use this time as a time of reflection and say, why not? What's stopping me? What's preventing me from accepting Christ and following Him wholeheartedly today? The people are going to come down with communion, and then I will pray us when we're done. So we'll participate in communion now. Christ that you made in our lives for us. Lord, we love you and praise your name. Amen. As we transition into offering, we're going to do offering a little bit differently today, and I'll explain that in a second. But As we leave, we're kind of short on time here. As we leave, we're going to have the ushers standing right outside the aisles. As you leave after we pray, if you have an offering that you'd like to give, you can put in the bucket. Again, if you consider New Life your home church, this is a spiritual act of worship. We believe that tithes and offerings is something that we do to show God that we trust Him with our finances, we trust Him with our money. If this is one of your first few times here at New Life, don't feel any compulsion to give at this time. We just are grateful that you joined us. I hope you come back next week as we look at Black Panther. But if you do feel like you'd love to give and you've been blessed by today's service, you can definitely give on your way out. Hey, also just want to highlight real quick, if you love some prayer requests, if you love someone to pray with you, we have our prayer team back there. We also have Dale Spalding. He's in the Auburn Tigers jersey. If this is one of your first few times at New Life and you have questions about what New Life is all about, he would love to talk to you and take 5 minutes of your time after the service. So let's pray. Let's stand up and we'll pray. And then the offering guys, the ushers will be in the back there, and you can put your offering check in there or not, or you can text it or email it as well, or put it on the web. All right, dear Jesus, thank you so much for today. Thank you for who you are. Lord, I just thank you for this message. And I pray that this message would not stay here when we leave, but it would go with us, and then we would reflect on your goodness, your healing power each and every day. Lord, we thank you and praise your name. Amen. Hey, have a great week and have a great Thanksgiving.